about issues of mental health. I'll just start with a story. One day I was at home. You know those persons in your gathering who are the life of the party. They are always very happy. I have this friend. She's one of such. We saw her. We saw on Sunday morning. She was all happy and jolly. At night, about 10:30 to 11, she calls me and says, "Cecil, please, do you have a contact of some of those people who can talk to people who have depression issues, who feel like committing suicide?" And I was wondering, what's happening? She said I should just give her a contact. I sent to her, but she couldn't get across to the persons. The next morning, I drove to her house and I asked her what the issue was. She said she cannot explain, but at night, she just felt like committing suicide. And I was wondering, why? Why? It's serious. I mean, this person who is always alive and happy, what could be the problem? So I host a show on the NTA called The Medley Show with Cecil. We discuss anything and everything. So my next episode of the program, I decided to talk mental health. That was when I contacted Dr. Dayaba, who came on the program. And trust me, the feedback we got, because it's a live program, people sending messages, the messages we got, approximately about 450. I just could take about 20 people talking about their different mental health conditions and needing help. I know this is a serious emergency. The chairman of the occasion, ladies and gentlemen, special guest of honor, I would like to pause at this point and get to introduce members of my panel, who together we're going to answer a couple of questions. So we have the seats now. Let me start with Dr. Iseko. Dr. Iseko is the GMD. Please make your way here. Thank you very much. He is the GMD of Limi Hospitals here in Abuja, consultant physician and cardiologist, healthcare management professional. Thank you very much, Dr. Iseko, for coming around. Nice putting a face to the name. My next guest, let's move this way. Let me call on Director, Human Resources and Administration at Save the Children International, Tunde Sawyer. A round of applause for him. He is a trained legal practitioner. He has about 14 years post-service experience. At Save the Children International, he has led in the implementation of round-the-clock mental health and well-being initiatives for employees. Thank you very much, Dr. Sawyer. I would like to next call on Usie Charles Emamuzo. He is the country director of Plan International. I saw him somewhere behind earlier. All right, before now, he was country director, Christian Aid UK. He is a strategic planner and community development expert. He likes to describe himself as an environmental health expert, a life coach, behavior influencer, and a fitness trainer. Yes, I can see he is a fitness trainer. When he climbs up the stage, you'll see what I mean. Exactly. He's walking the wrong way now, so you can have a look. All right, next I would like to call on Dr. Fatima Akilu. Dr. Fatima Akilu. She is executive director at NIM Foundation. She heads the psychosocial services component at NIM Foundation. She's a trained psychologist with 20 years experience in mental health and psychology. She was director for analysis and strategic communication at the Office of the National Security Advisor, a position she held for 3 years. Thank you for coming around, ma'am. Dr. Taiwo Latif Sheikh is my next panelist, and he's a member of the Africa Center for Disease Control Advisory Committee on Mental Health. Dr. Taiwo Latif Sheikh is a professor. He is professor of psychiatric and psychopharmacology at Ahmadu Bello University. Thank you very much for coming around, sir. Last and indefinitely, no way the list, I would like to call on Mrs. Vivian Sembataka. She is the head student support unit at Bayes University. also a lecturer in the Department of Psychology, also at Bayes University. She's a practicing counselor with membership in a number of counseling associations, coordinator at True Heritage Evangelical Ministry. You're all very much welcome. Okay, I have a couple of, questions we'll be talking about. But very quickly, when we talk mental health, mental illness in Nigeria, it can be a little confusing. I want to believe a number of us here might be a little familiar with this, but I'll first of all like to let's set the tone of our discourse today. I would like to ask Dr. Taiwo Latif Sheikh to please tell us the difference between mental health and mental illness.
Thank you very much. I align by the existing protocols, our mothers, our fathers, our elders, leaders, and colleagues that are here. When we talk about mental health, often what comes to people's mind is someone who has a mental illness. However, we've been trying to make people understand that there is a wide gap between mental health and mental illness. We all have mental health, but only very few of us have mental illness. But every human being has mental health, which you need to promote for you not to be able to develop mental illness, for you to be able to address the mental illness whenever it comes, and for you to be able to successfully heal. So what is mental health? That's the question. And the chairman of Intersect, our mother here, she explicitly described what mental health is all about. And it has to do with the way we feel, the way we think, the way we act, and the way we respond to our environment. Our mental health has to do with our ability to develop aspirations and goals, be able to achieve those aspirations in a manner that is acceptable within our sociocultural demands, for us to be able to contribute productively to the development of our society. And not only that, our mental health does not mean that we cannot be angry or we cannot feel disappointed. But our mental health is the ability to be able to cope with that anger, to be able to regulate that disappointment in a manner that will not affect the person that is next to us. So in essence, our mental health has to do with our everyday activity, and our everyday activity has to do with our mental health. Then what is mental illness? A mental illness is an illness of the brain, just like illness of the liver, like the illness of the kidney, that can affect that function of the brain in a way that it will manifest in a change in the way you relate with your environment. So this could come in a form of internal distress to you or manifest in a form of abnormal behavior noticeable by others. And we could hear when the lady who was the dramatist, yes, that you can't see it many a times. So mental illness has to do with your own internal distress, and it can also manifest as something that other people could see. But very importantly, I want to tell us something that many people don't seem to understand or they are not aware of. There is an in-between between mental health, that's your wellness, and mental illness. People assume that when you are well, you are there, and where you are sick, you are there. They don't seem to understand that there is in between. That if you are well, you look down on somebody that is sick. And that is the foundation of stigma, really. So that people think that when you are well, you are there. You are well today doesn't mean you will not be sick tomorrow. And you are sick today doesn't mean you will not be well tomorrow. In between mental health and mental illness is what we call mental distress. And many a times, people don't see the distress. Only you experience the distress. For instance, there are times you are not able to sleep well, your appetite is low, or you are not down with depression, you are not down with a sickness called anxiety. And yet you are struggling to cope with the demands of daily life. You wake up in the morning to go to work, you have to stretch, you have to ease, you have to feel like the world is coming to an end, and yet you are able to go to work. That is what we mean by distress. And a lot of us here, if I take a sample, experience this distress on daily basis. We struggle to cope, and yet we are able to deliver. And that, if not properly checked, is what will lead to illness. And many a times, it doesn't get to illness. It resolves itself automatically.
Thank you. Mental distress. No, when you're speaking, I just looked at the social media space. You know, in the social media, we tend to be something else. We paint this very beautiful picture. I mean, I first remember the story of the late actress who died, Adame. Yes, we all know that she was battling with so much, but she's always on our screens, always on social media, trying to make us happy and just keep us going and smiling. Anyhow, we've just learned another one, mental distress, in between mental health and mental illness. All right, it's the Conversation Conference 1.0, and this panel will be focusing on mental health in the workspace. I would come on to you, Dr. Akilu. In simple terms, what's mental health in our workplace?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Can we boost our audio?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I'm really happy to be talking about mental health at all, and especially in the workplace. Work demands so much of us. We spend more hours at work than we spend at home. And I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I said that work demands so much of us. We're at work on average 8 hours or more a day. So we're in the workspace much more than we are at home. And what does that mean? It means that work will test your psychological, your social, your emotional well-being. Mm-hmm. And this is at a time where there is, due to maybe historical, cultural beliefs, we still have a lot of stigma associated to what we call mental distress, as Professor just told us. In the workplace, what often happens is that there's a lack of recognition for mental distress. Whereas if you have a physical problem, that's often understood, empathized with, and addressed very often. You often cannot get free time for mental health problems. You can't get a sick day. You can't call in and say, I'm feeling sad today, I'm feeling a bit depressed. And your boss will say, okay, take a sick day. So there is this disconnect when we talk about a whole person, because we have an intergenerational gap where you have millennials and Gen Z that are willing to talk about their mental health and talk in the language of mental health, mental distress, mental illness, and we are not. So what happens is in the workplace, they're often seen as too needy, snowflakes, and really can't, they're not tough enough. And I think because of that, we don't really address the real issues that often come up in the workplace, issues of depression, anxiety, but more importantly, the issues of stress. Stress is one of the #1 killers globally. And we know that we have, in particular, specific stresses that are related to the workplace. These stresses are often unaddressed because we in the workplace do not know how to incorporate that as part of our human resource policies. There are very little companies that offer health insurance for mental distress or mental health. Yet a lot of companies, more and more, and some are even mandated to offer insurance for physical health. So these are all things that we must really interrogate. And why is good mental health important in the workplace? Let me tell you, it's cheaper to treat mental health than the loss that you'll make for lack of productivity due to mental health in the workplace. So we need to pay attention to it. People who have mental distress, mental health, mental illness, in whatever form, really are not, their productivity is reduced, their level of satisfaction goes down, their ability to interact with colleagues in the workplace is also affected, and on top of that, the loyalty to the organization goes down. So I think it's very important that we pay strong attention to what mental health is in the workplace and how people feel within that work environment that you spend so much of your time at.
You know, I like what you've just said. It's easier and cheaper to get to manage mental health in the workplace than the effect of its effects in your business. Ms. Sawyer, I'd like you to paint for us a picture of some of the challenges employees face in their workplace which can adversely affect their mental health.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Apart from what has been dramatized ably by Dr. Odeze and his team, you know, typically in a workplace, like Dr. Kilo has said, the typical employee spends 8 hours. That's 1/3 of their day. And if you're in Lagos, it's a conservative 4 hours more, factoring in the time you spend in traffic. So that gives you a sense of the pressure that employees can face. And typically, a lot of this pressure comes from maybe increased workload, prevailing economic situations. I don't think there's anyone in this room that's well paid enough not to feel the adverse effects of the economy. And in my sector, for example, we have a lot of employees in the northeastern part of Nigeria where there's a conflict zone, where there's been a conflict for the past 10 years now or so. So it's not just in-office factors. Sometimes it's environmental factors from the home. For example, I'll take your minds back to the lockdown. I think one of the positive effects of the lockdown was the acceleration of this type of conversations we're having. Okay, a lot of us worked from home for 1 year or more. And that was a period we partnered with our primary services. And one of the lessons I learned then was, despite the fact that we all thought most of the hardships employees were facing originated in the workplace, but then we were pushing, as employers of labor, we're asking people to work from home, which oftentimes was the source of the hardship. I'm talking of domestic abuse issues now. So when we partner with primary services, of course, we do not have all of the details because of privacy issues, but we had, you know, a broad perspective of what the sources of each individual's problem was. Quite a lot of it, apart from sleep disorders and anxiety, which we all had during the pandemic, quite a lot of it stemmed from the, you know, from the domestic setup. So it gave me as an employer or as a manager of people a good insight when people returned back to the office. So we were not just looking at mental health and psychosocial support from a one-size-fits-all approach. We recognized that it was multifaceted. So our partnership with primary services is ongoing. It was a child of circumstance. Now it's come to stay. So yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Okay. I would like you to add to it, Mrs. Tucker. You want to add to it? I would like to get a more picturesque, the more vivid picture of, in an organization, what are some of these challenges that the employee might face that will affect his or her mental health? You want to add to that, Dr. Tucker?
Yes, I would like like to say that I'd like to actually make emphasis on the drama and the scene
Okay.
that took place. Mental health has a way of taking effect on you when you have an excessive or extreme workload. And that's what was depicted there when that drama was. But what happens is that it takes a toll on you. You have burnout. There's home conflict. Then there's illness attached to all the excessive workload that is given to you. We could see from the drama that all the harassment that took place, the young lady went home. She couldn't sleep, obviously. She was in tears, emotionally drained from all the harassment that took place in the office due to overwork load, due to even sexual harassment that took place there. So these are all the things that happen in the workplace. One of them is also discrimination. You have gender discrimination. You have sexual discrimination. You have gender discrimination. You have cultural discrimination. You also have language discrimination. So in the office environment, you will realize that when people are separated, excluded because of these reasons, because I'm a woman, because I don't speak your language, because I don't understand your cultural background, or we're not from the same cultural background. It excludes you from the activities that takes place in the environment. And what happens at the end of the day is isolation. And we know what isolation does. It leads you to tending to have suicidal tendencies, where you find people going home and they're lonely, they don't want to come back to the office, and they think of killing themselves. We heard the moderator talking about someone who talked about killing themselves, and she was wondering why, how. These are the little things that occur. Safe environment. We may say that it's the employer's responsibility to look out for the safety of the employee. So when the employee does not have a safe environment, and that safe environment connotes this discrimination I'm talking about. The employer is not looking out when they're discriminated against, when they are harassed, or when they're bullied against. Then you find out that that employee begins to have a total mental breakdown.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Taka. I'll just pick up from where you talked about the employer being responsible for the mental health of the employee. And I'll throw this question to Usie Charles. Tell us, really, should the employer be responsible for the mental health of his employee?
Yeah, thank you very much. From my experience, I would say as an employer of labor that the employer should be responsible for the mental health of employees, even if be it outside the workplace and in the workplace. And the reason is because, like we've said, and I think so many people have said that mental illness is not visible. I mean, because in a place like Nigeria, for instance, it's easier for people to say, my leg is broken, than to say my heart is broken. And the reason is because people tend to see, mental stress as a negative thing and will not admit to it, even in the workplace. And so for us as employers of labor, it's our duty to check the welfare of our staff, being both in the workplace and out, because then it increases your organizational performance and outputs as an organization. If you have a group of people who are not mentally stable, on the aggregate, it means your organization is actually not stable. And if you have more people who are more stable, then it means your organization is more stable and would generally lead to more performance, as it were. But I think on this question, the last thing I want to say there when it comes to we being responsible is the kind of expectation we have of people. Many years ago in this country, I was part of the initial stages of responding to the HIV crisis in Nigeria. And one of the things we tried to do was to look at HIV from the social perspective. And we came to understand that one of the biggest things people deal with is the issue of the image, the ideal image of what it is to be a human being, to be a man or a woman. And over the years, we've been able to see that the ideal images that we've created of people, of men, of women, those ideal images have actually turned out to be our personal destroyers. Because the image, the ideal image, what is the ideal image of a man, of a young boy in Nigeria? It's a guy who went to school, finished with high, grades. Immediately he's finishing school, he gets a job, the way we call it in Nigeria, a white-collar job, with a car, even with a driver, big salary. He immediately finds a fine wife. He gets married. Oh, marriage is so sweet. They have children. They are lovely. That's the ideal image. And when a young guy grows up and begins to encounter the stresses that Professor have mentioned and does not conform to this ideal image, what happens? Stress sets in. Because they try to conform, they are not able to do that. They put themselves under a lot of stress and literally end up destroying themselves. That's why we find people going into all kinds of vices, because there is a societal ideal image they have to meet up to. As an employer, we do not, as much as possible, I speak for myself and my organization, plan is established in over 75 countries worldwide. And as a mandate, we do not judge or stereotype anybody at the workplace. Our role is to provide support. Our role, in fact, if I itemize all the support, probably in the course of this panel conversation, I can give several kinds of support systems that we have put in place to support people. We even have what we call self-care day in my organization. It's one day that you take. It's not leave, it's paid for, it's not your leave, it's a self-care day. Go home, take care of yourself. There are so many other ways we do it. So it is our responsibility. In fact, we have measures in place to support. We provide counseling and awareness to families of employees in such a way that employees who experience home-based violence of any kind can actually report confidentially, and we will get involved. I have sat down with husbands and wives and engaged in issues that are actually affecting an employee. Because then we noticed the output was getting down, and HR intervened. We got to find out a lady going through some abuse at home. We invited the husband, had a conversation with him, and made him understand that the stress this woman is going through, she's not performing in the workplace. Eventually, what will happen is she will lose her job. The pressure comes on you as a man. But now that she's working, you need to support her. It reduces your financial pressure. I think the man saw the logic there. So the thing is, these are conversations, and we try to make it as real as possible. That's our role. And so finally, my role as a country director most times is I'm a country director, I'm a father, I'm a brother, because then you go over and above what the policy says. You have to keep your staff healthy and happy. Thank you.
Employers here, I believe you've listened attentively to that, so you might want to meet him outside here for counseling and tell us how you've done it. Give us the tips so that we can all try to implement it in our places of work. When Sawyer was talking, I just mentioned Lagos, and I was wondering, wow, who was it that said, I think it was the Kaduna State governor that said, those living in Lagos have served their time in hell already? Because I'm serious. Sometimes even the air that you breathe in Lagos is stressful enough. I just returned from Lagos a couple of days back, and I just felt so stressed. I grew up in Lagos, but I don't think I want to go back and work in Lagos. My father wants me to come back to Lagos. I told him I don't think I can survive in Lagos. Everybody is angry. Everybody is aggressive. Let me just tell you this thing. You want to get into a bus. The bus is going from, the conductor is calling Agboju, Olusi, Alakija, Fina, Jabal. He calls it Agboju, change. And you now say, okay, are you going to Oluti? You say, Agboju, change. Okay, calm down. Just answer me. Everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's aggressive. All right, let me take this question to Dr. Iseko. Environmental factors, lights, bad roads, many things. Things are hard. Commuting from here to here, it's very difficult. How can the employer help the employee to cope with these environmental factors so that it would not adversely affect the mental health of the workplace and productivity?
Thank you very much. So these things happen, and it's part of Nigerian life. Inflation, inflation is about 19%, 18 to 19%, and salary raises are not even up to that. Not even promotion sometimes gets up to that. Now, two things have to be considered. First is that the employer is also under stress, especially if it's a private employer, and the employee is also under stress. So both forms of stress are involved. One thing I'd like to say is that shared purpose and shared responsibility is typically the way to go, in my opinion. This is what I feel. If I told you to climb up this staircase 5 times, top of the, I don't know how many, maybe 8 floors, go 5 times, you probably will not even start. But if I told you that for every time you go, there's 10 million naira to be gained, you will probably start beating people to move. What has simply changed? I've given you a different purpose. So one of the key things that an employer must do for their staff is to give them purpose, is to help them to find their purpose and to give a plan which they can fulfill that purpose. When people find purpose, work stress is reduced. So if I can see that my work has meaning, then my work stress can reduce. Can reduce. We are able to do a lot more. Thank you. We're able to do a lot for people out of self-sacrifice because we know it means something. So by the time the employer, number one, yes, he must address some financial issues, provide a boss, provide some things, and we try to do that for our staff. But also, he must provide a purpose. He must provide a meaning that this work means. He must show the employee that that employee matters. It's not just that your work matters, but you yourself matter. He must provide autonomy, some level of autonomy and discretion. And the level of discretion that the employee has helps them feel that they are exercising their mental capacity. That they are not just pressing 1 on the table, 1, 1, 1, till morning comes. But there is meaning to their work. And if you can put this together, then you can somehow mitigate the stresses. A lot of doctors are leaving the country in their droves. I mean, virtually every day I get a resignation letter on my table. UK, Saudi, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, everywhere in the world. And the people that stay back, why did they stay back? Why they stay back is purpose, despite the adversity that comes about. But the employee can also do some other things to pad and help these adversities that come around. Benefits, make life a little bit easier, find out what is really going on in their lives, and then make an effort to help. And I'll finally end by saying that, sometimes some of these things are easier when the employee base is smaller. By the time the employee base starts getting bigger, for example, over the past 5 to 7 years, our organization has grown to about 430 staff. It becomes much more difficult to find out what is happening to a customer service department, a customer service officer in one branch or the other. Who now? So the mental workplace health package must be stratified in such a way. There's no way that customer service officer can come to my office and say they are feeling bad or something is happening. We must find a way to make sure that these 4 principles are translated down the organization so that the people can have meaning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iseko. When you mentioned the fact that some of the doctors are staying behind because they are passionate about the job, they have a reason to stay back. When someone laughed in the hall, I just imagine what ran through our mind. In our mind, she will say, they don't have their visa just yet. They have applied, but they have not been taken. I don't know. It's a cause for concern. It's a cause for worry. I mean, between the 1st to the 7th of October, I knew about 6 persons who have left the country. And when they get there, they'll say, oh, Cecil, sorry, we didn't tell you. It just happened. And I wonder, it just happened? You applied for a visa, you went to shop, you went for an interview, and all of a sudden you told me it just happened? You just woke up and suddenly there's a visa on your passport beside your bed and say you have to travel in the next 5 minutes. I mean, so Dr. Iseko says it's shared responsibility, the employer and the employee. Usia, you mentioned that the employer should take charge of this. I would like to understand and get very briefly for the rest of my panel, who has another view to this? Who is responsible? 50-50, or the employer should take care of it because of the productivity in the long run?
Well, thank you very much. I think the various speakers have actually highlighted what we started with, that stress, mental health, mental distress, mental illness. Before I go there, I just want, if this is the only thing you will take home today, let it be. Each and every one of us seated in this hall and those outside are oscillating constantly between mental health, mental distress, and mental illness. Like a pendulum, we are swinging in between these poles every second, every minute, every day, every week. Nobody is constantly placed in one position. You are well now, suddenly they will tell you somebody died. You will experience distress. If that is not properly managed, you become depressed or anxious. So everyone, please note it, we are all oscillating between these poles every second, every minute, every day. As long as you are a human being, this is the fact. Now, when you talk about responsibilities in terms of workplace mental health, it lies on the employer, the employee, and the colleagues. And the colleagues at work, everybody is, like you said, when it's shared, it's lighter. But let's not forget the role of the colleagues at work. You sit with someone in the office and you watch that he's there but he's absent. Relative absenteeism is even worse than absolute absenteeism. He didn't come to office. Everybody knows. Somebody will take over his job. He's in the office but he's not working. That is even worse. So you are sitting with a colleague in the office and you realize that he's not performing. Don't leave him alone. So the employer, the person himself, the employee himself, and the colleague.
Thank you very much. You want to add anything to this?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to add to that. It is actually true that the employer has a lot of responsibilities. Okay, in our organization, for example, Save the Children, we have what we call a body system. Because you've put out an advert, and in your advert, you've actually bragged that you have a rich organizational culture. But when people come in, you don't see it. They just get alerts at the end of the month. Is that actually enough? So what accelerates their onboarding? Okay, what makes them settle in quickly or quicker into the organization? Most times they are left to just wing it. This is your job description, get on with your work. What we do is we develop what we call a body system. We identify someone who's going to be like your guide in the organization for the next 3 months, who's your go-to person apart from human resources.
Like a shadow.
Yes. So like your pair, we just attach it to someone based on your personality types and all of that. They do not necessarily have to be your manager or someone in your department. It's just a creative way to enrich the onboarding experience, because from the moment you interview someone, and by the way, in interviews now, you have a lot of candidates that know exactly what they want. It's not just about the money for them. You know, on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, when you sorted out the money, the feeding and all that, at the top is self-fulfillment. So candidates that are not just looking out for monetary compensation have been asking me in interviews in the last 1 year, what is your organizational culture? Why are you still in this organization? Or, for example, one thing I've been getting lately that I like, because I know we answer it with all excitement, is, do you have a mental health and psychosocial support plan for your staff? Because we do, it is easy to respond in the positive. Because if I try to be creative there and lie, when that person comes in and finds out that I've lied, trust would have been eroded. So I'm just saying all of this so we cannot, the responsibility of employers, of an employer, I think is number one. Then as individuals too, like Prof has rightly said, we owe it to our colleagues to look out for them, to be able to identify those red flags. And without in-house trainings, those red flags cannot be identified. And also finally, for each organization implementing a mental health and an employee assistance program, I encourage localized solutions. Save the Children, for example, is in over 100 countries globally. When we were, during the lockdown, when we were going to pioneer the mental health support system, there was help coming in from HQ. But I told them and said, there is no way, it's going to be difficult for a mental health practitioner on the phone, sitting in Shepherd's Bush in London, okay, to understand what someone, an employee in Yanya or Guarimpa is going through. That guy or that lady has not had light for the last 3 days, or has been in the fuel queue for the last 4 hours. So that is why we decided to come up with a very localized mental health plan for our employees, because it speaks to the reality of people who live here in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs.
Okay,
Daka?
just quickly, I would like to talk about my organization as well. Basically, what Bayes University is doing at the moment is partnering regarding mental health issues. Bayes University is just a little over 10 years, and we've had a counseling unit now close to going to 6 years. It's because they paid attention. When the university started, they felt they needed a department, which is called the Student Support Unit, also known as a counseling unit. And when that started, we had structures in place whereby we began to identify issues of mental health among staff. We sent forms to departments. We educated the HODs about how to talk to their staff when they go to the classroom. I'm also a lecturer. So when I go to the classroom as well, I find myself trying to identify my students who have certain issues and picking them out. And that's what we try to educate our other colleagues to do when they go to the classroom, because it's easy for them to do that with the student. And also with the employees as well. We have issues where we talk to the HODs or those in charge of various departments. Do you have a staff who is feeling burdened? Do you have a staff who is feeling sad? And from time to time, we've had referrals to our unit, staff who are feeling very stressed out, and we talk to them. Even right now, the organization is trying to have a situation whereby during employment and admission process, there are questions about your mental health so that that can get you directed to our unit to be taken care of.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Akili, you want to add to it?
I just want to say briefly, I think I agree that every organization has a duty of care to its employees. And I think if we saw what happened in countries around the world where the UN was deployed to deal with conflict, and they did nothing, and that's why the UN responsibility to protect a mandate came in. So now when you see situations of war or conflict, you have to intervene. And it's the same for employers. I just want to make the point that we talk a lot about employees, but what about employers? Employers also have mental health issues or mental distress issues. And Client International, when you talk about your 400 or so staff, you are the chief executive, and your management team, what kind of mental health support? Is that a priority in your organization, or do we just focus on our employees? Because that's really, really important. Very often the chief executives do not get the help that they need. So sometimes they are also transferring people to train for 20 years to become a qualified mental health practitioner in the way that a psychiatrist, psychologist, or a social worker. So what should be the kinds of training? And I like what Save the Children said in terms of their finding an alternative structure using a buddy system. So I just think that we should also have these kinds of conversations. How do we fill the dearth? We can't go the technical formal education route. I think we just can't wait. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We need to know what works for you, what works in your organization, and I would like to add my voice. I think it's joint, and the colleagues also have a role to play. You know, I have a boss, she's retired now, and she would, I was in the office on a particular day, so someone comes in and she says, "How are you?" He said, "I'm fine." He said, "How are you?" Then she burst out crying. Then she told me, "So please excuse us." Like, And when she said she was fine, I actually believe she was fine. But I guess my boss actually saw something beyond what I saw. Next thing, she burst out crying, and she said, Cecil, shut the door behind you, and she had a talk with her. So I think actually pair to pair. So since then, I actually look beyond, I am okay, I'm good, to actually asking, how are you? Plan International, let me ask you this question. Over the last 4 weeks, for instance, I noticed a colleague who would just talk to himself, laugh just at himself. And I wonder, is this okay? As a colleague, what should I do? That's a double. Second question is, as an employer, what action should I take?
Okay, thank you. Those are everyday situations that we actually see. I mean, let's put it into context and let's bring it back to the room here. We all grew up with all kinds of stressors in our lives, especially in this part of the world. From childhood, you have to carry first in primary school, it's pressure, you finish that. In secondary school, you have to come out with all A's, with your SSC. It's stress. In the university, ASU will give you your stress, you will collect your own share from your lecturers. We all grew up with this. But what happens over time is that you find out that people have different level of thresholds to manage the stress. Whereas somebody can go, one of the common things to say in Nigeria, especially when you find people who come for interview, can you manage stress? And you say, why not? I'm owing my landlord for 1 year and I'm still happy. That's stress. But for some people, they don't have enough money to buy the kind of food they want to buy. It's enough stress that can finish them. Whereas some people have not eaten for 3 days. They have hope. That's why our people in Warri say, hunger when get hope, no they kill. Once that there's that hope, you call it purpose. On the streets, we call it hope. So the thing is, in the office, you find people who come with all of this kind of upbringing. So we respect that. And that's why, as an employer, what we do is to create the enabling environment. In fact, in my organization, we have what we call a harassment and bullying policy. Yes, if you harass your colleague unnecessarily, it will subject you to disciplinary action. That's even as a line manager. So that kind of pressure from the drama we saw here, it can't happen in my organization. It can't happen. So as a boss, you are in charge of a team or people and you begin to put unnecessary pressure on them. We actually do an orientation which we call courageous conversations. And what we try to do is to enable people to speak out when they have challenges or when they feel pressured by their boss. So when we find this kind of strange behavior in the office, especially for people who ordinarily that's not their usual, imagine somebody who we know, who joined the organization and we started observing the person, is a very quiet person, comes, does his or her job, goes home quietly. All of a sudden, the person becomes overly noisy in the office. It's a trigger. Then we begin to check what really is the issue here. And usually, there are 2 points where we start the inquisition from, the line manager and from HR. Where we meet the line manager and say, have you observed your staff? And just like you said, because we have a big team, I have 10 offices in Nigeria, over 300 staff, I can't know everybody and meet everybody at the same time. So the cascade, the way the organization is structured is that everybody is answerable to someone else. And we have what we call a communication tree, whereby if we send out one message, we test it like every 6 months. I send out a message, for instance, as country director. I want to know how long it takes to get to the last person in the organization. And so we use the communication tree. I send to my direct reports, they send like that, and then in a few minutes, we want to check how fast. If you don't get a response, there's something wrong with that person. So there are systems in place to check how people cope with stress. And as an organization and as an employer, your role is to create an enabling environment. Once you create the enabling environment, that is where colleagues and the person involved take advantage. A common example, which I dealt with, I was looking at the travel plan for my staff. And we give what we call a feeding allowance when people travel for field work, right? Most of us do it, both private and, civil society organizations. And what I saw on the net was miscellaneous. And I said, what is miscellaneous? You've given the person money for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and then you put miscellaneous. Why miscellaneous? They said, well, sometimes you can run into unexpected, I said, okay, that makes sense. I said, if that is the case, then women should earn more. And they said, why? I said, because if a man and a woman set out to travel, the kinds of things a woman will be dealing with is different from the kind of things a man will deal with. A woman will think, okay, supposing I run into my period, where will I get pads? Some of them have terrible menstrual cramps. Where will I get Feldin if I have to use Feldin? And if we, as an organization, make a woman travel, who will undergo that stress? Now, people say, well, she will ordinarily undergo the stress. And we say, yes, if she undergoes the stress in her house, it's different. If we make her travel, it means we're responsible for that stress, and we'll take it. And from that point on, all the women in my office, they gain more when they travel. It's a reality. It's a practical way of dealing with stress. Because the kind of stress a man will deal with when traveling is different. We recognize it. So the men still have their miscellaneous, but the women have a little bit more. So it's a practical way we deal with these issues. And we create opportunities. For instance, in the office, where my organization, we have a crèche in the office, where women keep their babies, when they're breastfeeding, even if our maternity leave is 6 months. So we have a maternity leave for 6 months, but we have a crèche. We give paternity leaves. And during the paternity leaves, we encourage the men to sign up for mentoring, especially for new fathers. Because then we tell them that, this paternity leave, what you will experience is very different. And they come back refreshed because there is support for them. What am I saying in essence? Is the authenticity, of an organization or of an employer in dealing with real-life stressful situations, And for me, what I try to do is not to come with all the answers. Because just like my colleague here said, we also have stress. Even me, they get time when my head don't correct. Yes. And so when I come to the office, I don't hide it. It's how authentic you are. So my team know when I come to the office, right from the door, the first person there knows that, Oga no dey good mood today. I don't hide it. Why should I be a superhuman being simply because I want to show I'm the boss? And the reality of it actually makes the place a healthy environment, because then my team are not afraid to also show when they are vulnerable, because they know that I, as a boss, I show when I'm vulnerable. So it creates a healthy environment for us. And then we watch out for each other. I come into the office, I'm not looking like that. You'll find people walk into my office to say, oh, Charles, what's the problem? And I say, well, I had a head. And that's why in Nigeria they say, very commonly these days, they say people in their head correct, not reach 5. It's true. It's because we go through stress every day. A final example I'll give you, fuel situation. We understand what's happening with the fuel situation. In my organization, once there is fuel scarcity, what we ask is that we ask everybody, especially the women, especially the ones without car, to close an hour earlier. Why? If you go to the bus parks where women or where people take these along cars, just look at the situation. Take an example. You will see a car come, and then you see people rushing. Imagine a young woman or a woman trying to struggle with men. Imagine me struggling with a woman into a car. Who will get into the car? So what we do is that we say, come, during fuel scarcity, women close an hour earlier so that you are at the bus stop earlier and you can easily get a car. That is how practical we are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Iseko. Whenever you add that Wafi slang thing, I really like it. It drives it home very well. And you are the big boss over, and you have so many employees under you in different countries. I would really like to throw this question to another person who is an employer of labor, but this time locally in Nigeria. How does this picture paint out for you, Dr. Iseko?
That mental health plays a very big role. And I think we're still trying to collect our data. Among people that come in one of our hospitals, the cardiac hospital, cardio care, with chest pain and all, close to maybe 30-40% of them actually came in with mental health issues. So it gets to a time where the cardiologists have to start learning to treat anxieties and all of that. Somebody just died, and suddenly they start feeling chest pain. And yes, we exclude the heart attack, but a lot of times it's bordering on that. So when we see it in our own colleagues, it's a little bit easier because we found out that Mental health is playing a very big role among the people that finally make it to the hospital. Not the people that stopped at the chemist, but the people that finally get to the hospital need more than just treatment. They need, reassurance amongst other things. So when it happens in staff, there are several things. Of course, number one is the line manager and all of that. But once you have recognized a middle ground, so there are times when we have found people that are relatively maladaptive. They don't deal well with people. We move them from the front desk to preparing bills, for example. So they sit down alone with their computer and they are so fine after that. Or move them to the store where they are just arranging stuff. They become so fantastic. You wonder how good this person could have been. But when they had to deal with people just put stress on them. And in the hospital, people are shouting. They are shouting at them, they stop. You can see somebody squeezing the table, holding himself from retaliating to somebody that is shouting. You have to grab that person. Sorry, this is the wrong department. And, try and reassess, reassign, and then give new purpose. Remember that I said the workplace should be a platform for somebody to fulfill their purpose. So once you're able to do that, then you can be able to do that. Thank you.
Reassess, reassign, and give new purpose. Prof, the pandemic has come and hopefully gone. Do you think the pandemic brought more mental health to people even as they get back to their workplace? He's showing me a book. Okay. All right, so I would like to very quickly, if you can answer this question, do you think the pandemic has aggravated the mental health condition of workers at their workplaces?
Thank you very much. I was just showing her, I have this book I'm presenting to Intersect after this panel of discussion. Primarily, I brought it for my colleague and my oga. We all know what pandemic has done to our wholesome well-being. And when we say wholesome well-being, nothing is left aside, including workplace. Pandemic has made people to work from home. And we had the repercussions of working from home. And when you really, strictly speaking, when you talk about work-life balance, an ideal work-life balance is to be able to go to work, finish your tasks at work, go home and enjoy your family and whatever you want to enjoy at home. Be relieved of all the problems of work, and then go back the following day afresh. Now you are saying people should work from home. You see, you have already distorted that work-life balance by making people carrying work home. And I want you to understand that it's not just the physical work, also the mental work. So some of the things that makes you angry at the place of work, you are also carrying it home. So it's a double jeopardy. Now, what has pandemic done to our mental health system? Before the pandemic, the mental health gap in this part of the world is about 85%, between 85 and 90%, which means that only 10 to 15% of people who have mental health conditions can access service. The remaining 85 to 90% have no access to service. What has pandemic done? It has increased the number of people who have mental health issues. And it has actually not changed. In fact, it has worsened the services available because people can't go out because of lockdown. They can't get to the clinic. What did we do, Dr. Fatima Akilu? We set up a group in Nigeria. We call it COVID Mental Health Partners. You see, we did it together, and we brought all mental health professionals, mental health NGOs, CSOs. We brought them on board, and we started tax sharing and tax shifting, training people virtually on what we call psychological first aid. So we developed a platform. Virtually, we were training everybody. If you see your brother has a problem, this is what you do. Yeah, sorry, is this your problem? What can we do? I know somebody who can help. That in itself is something. She's here. We did that together. And that partnership is still existing. And that's what pandemic has done to us. Pandemic has crippled so many things, and it has not allowed some people, even after this window we have, has not allowed some people to go back to work. It has increased domestic issues, including domestic violence. Pandemic has led to suicides. People have committed suicide. I want you to understand that going to work sometimes is a relief. Yes. You have children, they go to school, you go to work, everybody gets some relief from that congested home. At least for about 7 hours, 6 hours, you have some relief. Now you put everybody together. You can imagine what that will lead to. A woman who cooks twice a day, just breakfast and dinner. You know how voracious these kids can be. Now she has to cook 5 times a day. And the husband will say, it's your responsibility. You can imagine what happens after that. So some people have not been able to even go back to work even after this window. That's what pandemic has done. And we are still not out of it. We are still carrying it along. Thank you.
All right, I'll just give you the last question, Sawyer, and take it very quickly if you can. You're a HR professional with many years' experience. Now, from a HR perspective, are we having these conversations enough in our workplaces, and how can we get around it?
I think compared to 2 years ago, and what did we do? We established fully functional gyms in our 2 biggest offices in Maiduguri and in Abuja. Okay, so yeah. So sometimes when I come to work, for example, here in Abuja, I go straight to the gym, burn some calories, get the endorphins flowing, then get to work. Now, how am I not going to be more productive? So it's from conversations we're having, which, by the way, are not enough, that some of these innovations are coming out from. So thank you very much to the organizers of these events for, I hope this will be one of many of this type of conversations that we'll have. We can't run away from it. Mental health is key, is a major driver to productivity.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. Uzi Charles a question. Do you employ people that are over 60 years old in your organization? Yes or no? Because if it is yes, I'd like you to send me an application form. But seriously, as the discussions were, people raised the issue, because it has been like one-sided. We've been talking about the mental health of employees, and I was wondering about employers. I'm sure anybody here that has run a small business will understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes your employees can give you so much stress that it can affect your mental health. It does. So the drama that was shown earlier was about an employer harassing an employee. But I'm telling you, in many instances, the employees also give you stress. I've seen cases where employees will, like people that have small shops, employees will have their own POS. When customers come, they will tell them the POS is not working, pay cash, or they will have their own POS. And then, of course, there's absenteeism, so much. And I know that the difference is that the employer can always sack the employee, which is a difference between the harassment from the employer to the employee. But at the same time, I find that in this environment, you sack somebody, you employ another, is the same old thing. So will you just keep sacking people? So I would want you, whenever you're talking about these issues, about mental health, to be more balanced, because it's not just the employee. The employer also, his own mental health is important. Thank you.
I work with the Department of Science and Technology, Otako. I want to appreciate the organizers of this program, Intersect Consortium. In fact, you people are doing a great job. My question is this. It goes to Mr. Charles and Mr. Tunde. Is there any provision for students when it comes to this mental health issue? How can students benefit from this? Knowing fully well that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And most times, these students, they experience this issue when it comes to bullying and other things. Thank you.
Discussions and conversations have been a blessing to me. I want to appreciate all the panelists. Thank you for all you do. I double as a vice president of organization and a pastor. So I found it interesting that most of the things that are being said are the things I found myself doing with members. So between now and Conference 2.0, I wanted to ask if there will be a consortium indeed to make what we are discussing here available to many, especially organizations. Maybe modules in training for organizations to play in their offices, or if there is a training that I can be part of, because I want to be able to speak in this regard, and I will be glad if the answers to that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, first I want to congratulate my boss, Mrs. Amuna Lawal, for this wonderful opportunity to be here. My name is Dr. Ibrahim Daudu, the one who was excluded from the gift thing. Because I was sitting alone here, so I didn't have a partner, but that's not it. My concern here, and I'm addressing the panel. I want to know how the issue of infrastructure, when you are dealing with the management of mental health, how far are we with infrastructure for management of mental health in Nigeria? Are we there yet? Or what do we need to do to provide for this very important area? And two, what is the impact of what is called generally as stigma? Because it's a stigmatizing perception sometimes with regards to things to do with mental health. So I wanted some information on that one, on those two issues. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Once again, my name is Ruth Mahogany. Just a little contribution. From the theme of this is my mental health, my priority. I think that there's a part of the mental health wholeness fraction that we didn't really put a lot of emphasis on, and it's the fact that we also as persons should take responsibility for our mental health. As much as every other person, like I said, a wholeness, so it's like a pie chart where different people bear something, but at the end of it, as a person, you're going to meet many people in life, and you do not know their difference. Everybody has a different psychological makeup. You would have to create mechanisms, coping mechanisms that you can survive as a person. So as a person, maybe it could be you exercising or finding ways, journaling or something. But as a person, there's a fraction of the mental health wholeness that we also have to take responsibility for. Yeah, so thank you.
Didn't figure that out in advance, and I appreciate the conversation we've had today. I want to make a couple of contributions. The young man at the end there was talking about the infrastructure for mental health, and I think that was important. Oh, young man, sir. Yes,
Not so young, but it's good.
The young man was talking about infrastructure for mental health, and I thought that was an important place to start because we don't have good infrastructure in Nigeria. And one of the reasons we don't have good infrastructure in Nigeria is because we don't have a good enabling environment. Mr. Charles talked about how employers help the enabling environment, but our government is the enabling environment for citizens. And they need to pass policies that make sure that Nigerians' mental health are catered for. Our current legislation in Nigeria is called the Lunacy Act of 1958. I think some people may be aware of this. Lunacy Act of 1958, which has its roots in 1916. So we have never had a representative body pass legislation for mental health in Nigeria. Our legislation for Nigeria is before the country became independent. And you may not know this, that there's legislation right now in the National Assembly that could help change the situation, that could help with human rights, that could help with the provision of funding and financing, that could help with the infrastructure that's been mentioned. Just last week, actually it's not just last week, this weekend, my organization with 25 other mental health organizations coordinated an awareness walk and have an open letter signed addressed to the president, to the Senate president, the president, Senate president, and the Speaker of the House. So if people want to improve the infrastructure for the legislation for mental health in the country, I would love to partner with them. I'll be sitting here so we can expand this message. And I hope some of our distinguished members that are here today could help us pass this message that we need to new mental health reforms, and I would like to collaborate with anyone who wants to change and make mental health a priority for Nigerians. Thank you.
They've created a division for mental health, and they needed to have governance structure for mental health. So a board was inaugurated, and the African Union nominated me to be on the board of Africa CDC for mental health. And within the short span that we joined Africa CDC, I joined Africa CDC just in April this year. We have developed governance structure for mental health to be shared among all member states in Africa. We have developed a strategic plan, an implementation plan, and we have started implementing it. And the first thing there of the strategic plan is to develop governance structure for member states. And for the past 6 years, Mr. Chime, I have been in the front runner of seeing a complete change of the mental health landscape of Nigeria by proposing the mental health bill, bringing all stakeholders together. And it's very disappointing and very frustrating that we can do this within 6 months in Africa CDC, and for 6 years we are not able to do it in Nigeria. And like he said, that is a bill that seeks to address everything we are talking about in this hall. Everything, including workplace mental health, mental health financing, human rights, protecting the people and protecting the citizens from excesses of the mentally ill. I feel a little bit, Your Excellency, I'm very happy that you are here. Your Excellency, Ambassador, I'm very happy. Our chairman, chairpersons, I'm happy. But I'm not too happy that other political juggernauts have left, because they will have also carried this message. You cannot do anything without a governance structure. And when we say governance structure, we talk about policy, strategic plan, implementation plan. Who will do what, where, when, how? And we also now talk about legislation. Policy is a promise by the government to its people. It's not legally binding. If I have money, I'll buy you shoe for Christmas. Then your sister falls sick. I use the money to take her to the hospital. You can't take me to court. But if there is a law that says that if you promise me shoe for Christmas, you must do it, otherwise you go to jail. Then even if my sister falls sick, you will borrow money to take care of her and make sure that you buy me that shoe. That is the function of the legislation. And we don't have the legislation. So every day we have government promising mental health, mental health. Government spends less than 1% of its budget, of its health budget, not total budget, on mental health in Nigeria today.
Prof, you're getting very passionate. I
Yes,
get it.
I
get it.
It
But
touched me
we
so
just,
much.
I know, but
we need your support. We count on all of you. Now, let me just talk briefly about stigma. Stigma sits on myths, misconceptions, and stereotypes. When you have certain myths about a condition, you start having misconceptions about it. And that one will not make you to develop some ideas that are strange, that are impossible about that condition. And that gives back to stigma. Stigma is a huge barrier, even in terms of workplace mental health. People go to work, they cannot say it. They are afraid I may be sacked. I have become a columnist in the Vanguard. Please go to mental health chat room in the Vanguard. Go to the archives. I've written so many things in the Vanguard.
Thank
Every
you,
Tuesday,
Prof.
I write. And people have been fired from work because they disclose that they have a mental health issue. So that in itself is a problem. We didn't talk about that here.
You know, this is an ongoing conversation.
have to.
There will be 2.0.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
will
Thank
be
you.
2.0. Thank you very much. In a minute, if you can do this, I appreciate. Yeah.
Oh, for me.
For you, Plan.
Okay, in a minute, just to say that the professors have spoken around the curative aspect of it. For me, a non-professor and a practitioner and someone who is on the field, what we promote is the prevention. And just like Prof said, we actually oscillate between mental health and mental illness. My job is to ensure that wherever I am, whatever position I have, I don't allow people to end up in mental illness. And that's why I use my position at every point in time to help people, because I also oscillate. And because I'm conscious of it, I understand what other people go through. So in essence, in answering your question, for students, one of the biggest problems of mental health issues that we have encountered, especially for young people, is the whole domestication issue where they are not able to speak out. If we create channels for young people to speak out when they face any form of trauma or stress, it reduces the tendency for them to remain permanently in mental health issues. And that's what we've been doing with many students across Nigeria. We work in schools and we support them. We create channels. We call it whistleblowing channels, where they can speak out, without identifying who they are, and then they receive help. And we've been able to support a lot of young people doing that. I think that's the only question I can respond to. Yes, and then just to say quickly that abuse actually thrives in secrecy. And that is why any form of abuse and stress actually thrives in secrecy. So once you create an environment for people to speak out, then the tendency for them to remain permanently and lead to mental health issues or diseases is actually reduced significantly. And finally, Your Excellency, we have people who are over 60 in my organization, but unfortunately, we can't employ someone like you.
Her Excellency actually looks 35 to me.
Actually,
she looks
younger,
35, yes. All right, last word, Dr. Iseko.
Thank you very much. What I would just say is that all these issues, I apparently happened to be on the floor of at the reading when we were trying to defend the NHIA for healthcare professionals, when Professor Sheikh was trying to do for the health bill. And of course, NHIA has gone through, and the mental health bill is still there. But what does this what does this tell you? Things generally move in the direction of politics and economics. And politics always supersedes economics, not in necessarily what is right. So things like this the Intersect Consortium that we're sitting down, what we are doing is preparing a template on which we can make this a political issue. Once we can make this a political issue and make employers see the economic side of it, these things are simple things that can be done overnight. Right. But until that comes up, it's going to be a problem. And I'll end with reminding us of the 4 things I said that are critical. Number 1 is purpose. If we can make our workplaces have purpose, we are going somewhere. Number 2 is autonomy, and that you can bring in something that is unique about you. Number 3 is communication, that the person at work matters. What you are doing matters, and you matter. And number 4 is a structure that can deliver this consistently, both for the employer and for the employee. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Iseko. Dr. Akilu, it's your turn.
Thank you. I'll keep it really short and just address the issue of infrastructure in the interest of time. I think part of the reason why we haven't had a health infrastructure is lack of political will. So, what I personally believe is that it can be done while Professor Sheikh and so many people in this room have been working for years on the policy level. During COVID, what we found is that we could create infrastructure for mental health because we were able to get almost every association that dealt with mental health in this country and most of the NGOs to provide mental health care nationwide across multiple platforms. What we are trying to do now through my foundation, NEEM Foundation, is to create a platform that is national for mental health care provision. I mentioned earlier that we just don't have the practitioners that we need, but I think that if we reimagine mental health, we can redesign what mental health should look like in low-income countries like ours. So we could have a certification, which we do. We have lay counselors that we train for 9 months, and we supervise them. They've been providing extremely good quality mental health. The work that we do has been independently evaluated by King's College, and it's found to be effective in reducing all the indices of mental health. So we're trying to use this platform to make it nationwide. So far, we have 200 lay counselors that we have trained. And it also addresses the issue of, because I work mostly in conflict, but not specifically in conflict, that we do provide to internally displaced people mental health support that is of good quality, that is long-term. And just to end, the institutional bodies are very slow to respond to a broadening of mental health. Your Excellency, I've been in Kaduna many times and tried very hard to have a mental health infrastructure through the primary healthcare agency. We haven't had much success. But this is things that can be done. I don't think there's any reason why there shouldn't be a trained mental health counselor in every single primary healthcare center in this country. And I also don't see why mental health care is not provided through national health insurance, especially now for people who are in conflict, people who are facing dispossession of their homes, either through insurgency or through flooding. So I think to end, I think that if we had the backbone, we talk about resilience, but we're not resilient in government and we're not resilient in terms of provision of care. Long-term support requires you to stick with it for the long term, but I believe it can be done.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Akila. Mr. Sawyer, if you can do this in 1 minute, I would like it.
Yes. I'd just like to address the gentleman then. I see he's anxious. You raised a question about training opportunities. Yes. I think in our sector, I can speak for Plan International and Save the Children. Continuous capacity development is one of our pillars. So we're glad to share with you opportunities. And this applies to the student over there. We have internship programs, and we are called interns, the same mental health and psychosocial support that we would offer other cadres of staff. So I'm here with a colleague of mine. We're glad to share links to resources and future training opportunities with you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to answer, I just add to what Mr. Sawyer said about the student thing. One of the things that we do is that we have a plan in place to help the student understand their mental health awareness issues. One of the things we do that we encourage them to have a conversation. And one of the things when they come to us is that we have this 5-point notes that we do for them. One is we ask them to have a goal for their vocational activities, educational activity, family activity, social activity, and their spiritual activity. We believe very strongly that it doesn't matter what you're going through. If you have in place goals and you are able to break down those goals in these capacities that I've mentioned, you will be able to attain any endeavor that you step out to achieve. That's one of the areas that we do. Going about what we're talking about here, which is a conversation, by the title or the theme, we say that my mental health is my priority. It's basically our responsibility because each and every one of us, just like the other speakers have said, we swing. We go from one place to another. We go through challenges. We're going through a health issue, distress, or one thing or the other. I think it's our responsibility. First of all, we need to start having a conversation about what we are going through. Self-awareness is important. Begin to think about setting goals. Laugh. Laugh is good medicine. We've been laughing all day. I can see some people smiling. It's good medicine when you laugh. I'm not saying you should become a comedian. But I'm just saying that have a good laugh. Don't take life too serious. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you one thing. This conversation is ongoing.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mrs. Vivian Sembetaka, Head of Student Support Unit Based University. Next to her, we've been talking with Director of Human Resources and Administration, Save the Child International, Tunde Sawyer. And just beside me, I have Dr. Fatima Akilu, Executive Director, NIM Foundation. Thank you very much. And Professor Taiwo Latif Sheikh, who will be presenting a book to Dr. Vincent Udenze in a moment. Thank you very much. He's consultant psychiatrist, members of the African CDC Advisory Committee on Mental Health. Next to him is Country Director, Plan International, Usie Charles. Thank you very much. And lastly, in definitely no way the least, Group Managing Director, Limi Hospital. Thank you very much for doing this with us. Dr. Udenze, please, Prof would like to present you a book.
Can we give them a round of applause? No, I think Dr. Denze will just join you up there. No.
Right, Dr. Denze, maybe you want to come up here. So
I think it's better. And then also, take it down a bit. Time is of the essence. And so I'm just going to plead with all our panelists to please be upstanding for a group photograph with Dr. Denze. And I'll invite Muna Lawan Ali MNI to join them for this photograph. Can we please be upstanding so we can just, after this presentation, it will be time for a group photograph.
Presentation? Okay, yes, good. Okay, please.
In saying something, Prof, I know professors don't talk.
Yes,
please.
It's a collection of my work during the COVID pandemic in mental health, both in terms of research, publications, collaborations, including the COVID partners that we did. Everything is in there. So it's I presented it at the West African College of Physicians conference this year, and it's called Pandemics and Our Wholesome Well-Being, which captures everything about ourselves. I really feel honored by my Oga, Vincent, where he's actually my own boy, but has grown to become my Oga. And that is our prayer all the time, that the young shall grow. And it's my pride, actually, when I see my younger colleagues that have trained, that have worked behind me, have risen to this level. I've had my students become ministers of health, not one, not twice, even when I was serving as chief executive of a federal hospital. I was supervised by my own students, who was the Minister of Health. So it's my pride, Vincent. I'm really happy with what you are doing. May God continue to bless you. The people who have provided the platform for you to blossom this much, may God reward all of you abundantly.
Thank you very much. That's a presentation. Pick the mic. Thank you very much, Cecile.
Yes, we'll have the photograph session now.
You're joining them, so
yes,
you're not outside.
Yes, I will join them.
The recipient of this award, that is the Mental Health Personality of the Year, goes to none other person for all that he is doing and has been doing. It goes to none other than General Mohammed Buba Marwa, the chairman NDLEA. And to pick this in his stead is Hajia Salamatu Suleiman, who's already making her way here.
It is my pleasure, General, to present this award to you. The award is Mental Health Personality of the Year, Public Figure. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's have this photograph where there's a word for General Buba Marwa. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. We wish you a very brilliant day ahead of you. And do extend warm regards to General Buba Marwa, and to whom much is given, much is expected. So we're expecting that he continues to do much more in his duties, and on his duties too. This next award, ladies and gentlemen, is going to the Outstanding Media Organization on Mental Health. And this award is presented to an outstanding media organization which utilizes its platform to create, develop, and share content on mental health as it relates to people, communities, and society at large. This is not just recognition, but an appreciation and a call to doing more. With rousing applause, please join me, ladies and gentlemen, as I present to you the winner of the Outstanding Media Organization, and it goes to First BBC Hausa Service. Do we have the correspondent? Do we have anyone representing BBC here? Okay, he's making his way. The editor, okay, that goes to the editor. Mr. Aliyu Tanko is here. Please let's welcome him with a resounding applause. This goes to the special guest of honor for her to present to the recipient. Okay, I think we have him stand on the other side of Her Excellency. So it looks like, let it don't look like you're the one presenting to Her Excellency now.
So this award is being given to BBC Hausa Service for Outstanding Media Organization on Mental Health. Congratulations.
Please come now, come. Please come. Can we please give them a round of applause as she makes this? All right, the second media organization to win these coveted prize or coveted trophy is going to be an outstanding presentation to an outstanding media organization which utilizes its platform to create, develop, and share content on mental health as it relates to people, communities, and the society at large. And this is not just a recognition, but an appreciation and a call to doing more. With rousing applause, ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I invite for these outstanding media organizations award presentation to the largest television network in Africa. Represented here, the DG is represented here by Dr. Steve Egbo, the Executive Director of Administration and Training, and it looks like he has stepped out. Can we ask Cecil Egbele to please pick these in his stead, in the DG's stead? And I think it is something we need to communicate to the Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, the largest television network in Africa. Your Excellency, Ma. A round of applause for NTA, please.
So this award is to NTA for Outstanding Media Organization on Mental Health. Congratulations.
But you wait, don't go and leave immediately. Dr. Doinzim will have to join you on this side for a picture. Thank you very much, we appreciate. Congratulations, NTA. Do more. That's what we're asking you to do with just this little token of appreciation. Right, the next one is the Outstanding NGO on Mental Health. And this award is to a non-profit organization that goes out of its way to provide for the mental health needs of its target population. We have not focused on organizations whose primary intervention is on mental health, but one that has to do or has had to include mental health in its primary area of intervention. Here's a big recognition and appreciation to the winner of the Outstanding NGO on Mental Health, TLMN, and the Leprosy Mission. And to receive these is Dr. S.O. Udo, the National Director. Dr. Udo, thank you very much. And congratulations, we're expecting much more from you as you pick these coveted award home. Congratulations, Your Excellency.
So the Outstanding NGO on Mental Health Award is being given to the Leprosy Mission, Nigeria. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Dr. Odenze, join them on this side after this for a photo opportunity as well. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you. Just before we perhaps proceed from here to our seats, let me announce to you the Outstanding Mental Health Care Provider Award for the year. And this award recognizes a company or organization that champions mental health through initiatives, programs, service delivery, and activities aimed at increasing accessibility to mental health care services. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this award is Garki Hospital, CMC representing the MD. Egbashi Martins is here to represent and pick this coveted award. We're doing this because of time. Yes, please, congratulations and our regards to the CMD.
Congratulations for this award of Outstanding Mental Health Care Provider. This award is being given to the Medical Director, Garki Hospital, Abuja. Congratulations.
Congratulations. The next winner of the Outstanding Mental Health Care Provider Award, ladies and gentlemen, should get ready. All right, the next award, this same category, Outstanding Mental Health Care Provider Award. The second award goes to Federal Medical Center, Abuja. CMAC is here representing the MD, so if you're anywhere close by, would like that you come up to the stage. Is he here? The representative of the Federal Medical Center, not yet here. Okay, I'm sure if he's not here, then I think we'll skip that. Okay, we'll present this to them perhaps in their office. Like this. At this point in time, for doing a yeoman's job, Prof. Latif had cause to say this again and again. Dr. Udenze has been doing a yeoman's job. Thank God for the training he's got in Nigeria, but United Kingdom based. But every now and then, he's invited even to come as a resource person in a conference in Nigeria. He pays his money from his pocket to be able to fly down and fly out again. Takes care of most times of his hotel accommodation. I've had cause to visit him. Gives us lunch, gives us dinner, and then some stipends at the end of the day. But together, we need to appreciate this man for all that he is doing. Dr. Sheikh has had cause to, Prof has had cause to say much about him, but we're not giving him any other thing, but we just want to also show an appreciation to him. If your hands are not very busy, I'd like us to please applaud Dr. Udenze one more time. Oh, wow. You know, back in the days when we were growing up, when they talk about someone being a psychiatrist, you almost think that you're seeing a mad woman or a madman himself. I'm very sorry. No, sir. No, sir. Please pick your Excellency.
Okay. For the Outstanding Medical Healthcare Provider Award, it's awarded to Medical Director, Federal Medical Center, Abuja. It's being received by Dr. Amina Saidu. Congratulations, and keep doing the work you're doing.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'd like Dr. Udenze to, just after this photo opportunity with Her Excellency, Dr. Udenze, pick that award and present it as if you are presenting it to her, because we want this picture to go places. FMC is waiting to see this picture, not just Madame alone, not Her Excellency alone. So, yes, you should collect it and give it to her again, so you can also have this photograph with her. I learned that the CMD is waiting to see this picture of yours and the head of the department representing him. Please, can we applaud her? Thank you so much.
So I'm hopeful that after this presentation, that is what we're all going to be to one another. Thank you. When all the world
Thank you very much. Lunch is about to be served, but just before then, please take a bow and give her another resounding applause as she leaves the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for making out time to be here today. We've had an amazing time having this conference and having these conversations, and I know that we have been left with so much to talk about, so much to discuss, so much to go back to start implementing. But the thing is, we don't want to have to leave you without talking about a solution, because the reason why we've come together to discuss this conversation is because we ourselves have the solutions for you. So the Intersect Consortium has an organization that actually provides an employee assistance program and an employee wellness program. Although I wouldn't be able to talk about the whole thing, I want you to just take a look at the book that you have in front of you. Just at the end of that particular magazine, you're going to see more information about the services that we provide, how we provide the services, and I want to let you know that the services that we provide for your employees in your different organizations are very affordable. So in case you've heard this conversation and you're asking, how do I go about it? What's the next step for me? How do I implement some of the things I've heard? We've heard about so many people in different organizations doing great things in their companies. So how do I implement this in my own organization? Well, we have the solution for you. There's a number there you can call. There's so many other information about the services and how it works. So please give us a phone call. You can call that number right now and you're going to get the information you require. Thank you all so much and enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me invite very quickly, just as you put your hands together, I invite the Conversation Conference 1.0 Face of the Year. And to do this award, I'd like to invite Dr. Udenze to take it up from here, please. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much, everyone. As you are aware, this is the very first time we're doing this. That's why it's TCC 1.0. You appreciate the fact that most magazines, people go on internet, get some face, and stick it on the magazine just to make it look very nice. We chose not to do that. We chose to put the face of one of our staff. So that magazine has got the face of one of our staff. This is someone who has worked with the organization going on about 8 years now, which is very difficult to find a staff who's worked with it for about 8 years. She has her bachelor's degree from a university in the UK and also has a master's in public health. She left us, went on a one-year internship program to the US, returned and came back to us. And she works in the NGO arm of Intersect Consortium known as Reconnect Health Development Initiative. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the face of TCC 1.0, Jane Igwebe. So this award goes to the face of TCC 1.0. So the magazine you've got in front of you, the face there, she's a program manager for our NGO Reconnect Health Development Initiative. 8 years working with the organization. Thank you so much, Jane, for all you do. And congratulations. Where's that photographer? Where's the photographer?
Thank you, and thank you very, very much. Okay, we'll invite, we have actually had photograph, except for quite a good number of us that didn't come up to the stage for photography. But food is served. Is it plated or we're moving that way? Okay, so, all right, so please can we file out, he'll lead. Dr. Dayabu will lead, and all the other staff of Intersect, please lead us as we go for lunch. Lunch is served. Bon appetit.
Simple as saying thank you. I thank you all for coming, for gracing this occasion. I thank you for making TCC 1.0 a huge success. I thank you for spending time with us despite your busy schedules. I will look forward to seeing you at TCC 2.0. Thank you very much. I wish you all safe journey back to your various destinations. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think that brings us to the end of these conference.